Good morning, Moms and Master Books. Today I am joined by Brittany.
Hi.
And we are going to do a rapid fire Q&A Master Books Curriculum. What kind of rapid? Ready?
Yep. All right. So Tammy asks, we are from Canada, and do you think using your math program would be a good fit?
I do. There's a lot of homeschoolers in Canada who use math lessons for a living education. We also, the resellers we sell it through. The only thing that I would warn you is it teaches the standard measurement system, inches, feet, yards, that type of thing. So a lot of homeschoolers, Canadian homeschoolers, will adapt that and use the metric system for that.
Cool. Julie asked, if children have major gaps in foundation math, what would your suggestions be on where to start them? I did the placement test, but finding out the gaps go clear back to basic addition and subtraction.
Yeah, so I would classify those as learning gaps. And you can do it a couple ways. If you took a student who is at a 5th grade level, intellectually, they should be more capable of doing things at an accelerated rate. So you could go back to a very basic and say, listen, guys, we're just going to fly through this. We should be able to do, a couple weeks worth of lessons in a day because you're a 5th grader. So that's one way of doing it. Another way that you can do it is you could just focus on those learning gap areas. If they're struggling with some addition things or whatever, you could focus on those and then move them into the placement. So some people actually buy the PDF of a prior math lessons for a living education, and they will do the just those sections pertaining to that. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important. You don't want to just do a 6th grade math because your student's supposed to be in 6th grade. The reason we teach our kids is to learn. And so if they don't understand something that maybe they would have gotten at a 3rd grade level and they're at a 6th grade level, it's more about the learning than it is grade levels. And students get frustrated when you just push them forward and you don't, you didn't have the basics. It's better, I think, to go back and do the basics and then work your way forward. And even, let's say 5th grade level, there's enough time to catch a student up. So if you did, if you combine 2 or 3 grade levels until they hit their age level, I think you would be okay.
Cool. Carla asked, any update on the Bible curriculum that Israel Wayne is writing?
Yep, Israel Wayne is contracted to write a Bible curriculum that's more of an apologetics based. We see so often, we know a lot about, be good, right? But we don't often understand some of the theology and teaching it to our kids. Some of the things like you would have learned in a catechism where, the Godhead, the 3-in-1, those types of things. So Israel's working on that. He's been very busy this season doing conventions. He did a lot of conventions for Master Books. And I know he's back to writing it, but I haven't gotten word yet on that. So hopefully in 2020, we should start to see some Israel Wayne products coming out.
Sweet. Lydia asked, do you teach metric system anywhere in math? This is only our 2nd year, and we are loving how relevant this curriculum is to life.
I didn't see it in there. There may be a section or two, but it's primarily the U.S.-based measurement system. Mm-hmm. So that would be something that you'd want to add or do some of your own, do some practice measurement and that type of thing with metric.
Lexi asked, any update on language lessons for living education 6?
It is written and it is in editorial and should go to design. It is expected to release by the end of this year. Mm-hmm. And so Brittany is my daughter. My wife, Kristen, has written it in the midst of treatments and everything else. We haven't seen a lot of her. So we are excited that Math Lessons for a Living Education 6 is completed.
We're just as excited as you are.
Yes. And she is now working on converting basic language skills over to that format, that should go faster. So she's pretty much she's just at the beginning of that spot. And I expect that also she'll be done with that. And we will probably have that available before the end of the year or early 2020.
Awesome. Melody Little gave a little bit of an update. She said, I asked a few weeks ago how to get my son engaged in church and Bible again, and you had told me to have him start teaching or get involved. I just wanted to update that an opportunity to help out with the tech during junior church came up for him, and he loves it. He's so engaged and excited again. Thank you for suggesting something I'd never really even considered.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thank you for the feedback, Melody.
And then Jennifer asked, when will the math help book by Angela Odell be available to pre-order? And Doug Karen said, math help book, tell me more.
Okay, so Math Lessons for a Living Education has everything you need in the book, right? It's got the teaching instruction, it's got the student instruction. There are some friction points where parents, as we watch, parents would be like, I don't know how to do this, or I don't understand what you're talking about with right brain flashcards or that type of thing. So the companion guide, Angela did the companion guide. I think you talked with her last week?
Last Thursday.
Okay.
The week before.
The week before, okay. We did the video talking about that, and that's in-house. The editors have it. I think design is looking at it. They're wrapping up a bunch of things, like the Math K is done. Simply K was finished. The art book, which we're extremely excited about, is in the final stages. The biology lab book, which turned out better than expected, is there. The Elements of Faith, wow, that book is there. So the designers are wrapping up some of those projects, and then they'll be moving into some of the companions. So I think you're going to see that this fall. But it's about to go to design. Something I will tell you that we did, right brain flashcards are one of these friction points, right? They're really great if you have the time and an understanding. So what we did is we, in marketing, have our own designer. And so we kind of bypassed the system. And we worked with our designer and Jessica McCullough, who is here in the group. And can I give a shout out to Jessica? Jessica has one of the hardest jobs in the Moms of Master Books. Her job is to help us make sure the group stays on track. And it is a thankless job because oftentimes she ends up looking like the meanie in the group. And she is one of the sweetest people and has the reason we wanted her to participate and be part of moderating, and then now she's actually an employee here with Master Books, was because she added so much value to the group. And so we appreciate the job that Jessica does, and I hope everybody here does too. And when you see that she's having to bring about some, hey guys, that's not allowed in the group, and please don't do this. All of you who are part of this group and appreciate it, I'd love it if you would also just support her in what she does to keep us on track, okay? Because sometimes doing customer service and those type of things, it really can be a burden. And she hasn't said anything, but I just want to make sure that she knows that we really appreciate the job she does, because it's so hard to be monitoring all of the posts. I think one day there was like 110 posts just in the morning.
It's been insane. And then you add up the comments for each of those posts.
Thousands.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I did that, we'd spend all day just trying to do that. So, okay. So anyways, I got sidetracked. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
So what we did is we went bypass, and Jessica designed these. Yeah, Jessica did. Jessica designed it. And then Felicia, our designer, made it, she did what she did. So what we've done is we've got these sheets that come. I don't know, you can see they actually have a line on them. They've got the very basic, like the dots. So 1 + 9 equals, and then there's 10 dots on there. And when you flip it around, it actually will have the vertical presentation. So horizontal on one side, vertical on the other. And what we did is these are going to come in a sheet. These will be available, I'm hoping, this week, if not next week, because they're already designed. We just got to figure out how to run them through the printer. They're on a pretty good cardstock. And we put this dotted line because we also know that in first, second grade, what one of our students couldn't use a little scissor practice. And so the dotted line, and this one's black, but we actually made it gray on the final copy. It's hard to do, isn't it? There it is. Yeah. So what we did is the student can actually cut these cards out, and it's not glossy. It's so that you could actually decorate them and write on them and color them if you wanted to. But it has the addition and subtraction facts will be in this, and there'll be more information on it. But what'll happen is then the student, once they cut it out, you'll have, let's see, you can kind of see it, and then you could flip it over. This is so difficult.
Good
yeah.
job. You got this.
So you'd actually have all the cards cut out and available for the students. So these are coming too. So what we're looking at is with some of the lines now, like Math Lessons for a Living Education. A lot of the books have gone through, have had the revision, so they're in the revised copy. I think Math 5 might be in going through that process right now. We've got some of the bugs worked out, a lot of the corrections done, but now we're looking at where are friction points. So teacher companions, some right brain flashcards, some stuff like that we can add to make it easier for you to use the program, are the type of things you can expect in the future if you're using those types of programs. I went way off track.
You're all good. Exciting stuff. Angela, keeping up with the right brain flashcards, will there be any right brain spelling cards that go along with language lessons?
Not yet. When I asked Kristen about it, she said, whew, that would be a job. So
one step at a time.
Yeah. I know the next step for her may actually be, once she gets this process all done, I've asked her, would she do a companion guide, a teacher companion for the Language Lessons for Living Education series.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Looping back around to Israel Wayne quick, what grade levels will those Israel Wayne products be intended for? That was asked by Debbie.
We're looking at a complete elementary through high school type solution. So maybe there'd be 4 levels or so: lower elementary, upper elementary, junior high, and high school.
Aaron asked, any update on the Living Art Lessons previews?
It's pretty close. I know in design, I saw copies of it. Maybe next Tuesday, I'll do one of those sneak peek where I steal it from somebody. Yeah, see, I'm lucky. So Kristen works from home most of the time. She comes in 1 day a week, but the editors will put stuff on my desk to take for Kristen to see. So I have access to files. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Rhonda, she said, I would like to know how to use the Create Your Own Dictionary properly. I'm just starting Language Lessons for Living Education 3, and I'm curious which spelling words or if all spelling words should be placed in the Create Your Own Dictionary. Thank you, guys.
The recommendation of the author, Kristen, is that you would use the words that the student would struggle with. So instead of doing it for every word, maybe you choose the words that they struggle with, or maybe even their favorite words, but you wouldn't have to do it all. It would be more something that the student would, by working with the dictionary, they would have access to touching it more, seeing it more, learning the correct usage.
W asked, will those, the right brain flashcards, will those be available as download, or will you have to order them as physical copies?
We will probably do them as a download as well. Yeah, the complicated part of a download is it takes a lot of effort to figure out how to get it to print this way, but then when you flip it over, it all works too. So right now, the physical copy is going to be easier for most people because I think they're going to struggle trying to make it work reverse sides and get it to work. Like we had to play some games to do that with our printer.
Right.
So it's a good question. That was Debbie. It's a good question, Debbie. I don't have an answer.
Okay, cool. Moving on.
I said I would have an answer, but I'm not concerned about making it available as a download. I'm concerned about the customer support issues we get when people try to do it and can't. And every printer, Adobe Reader, every computer, people try to print it from their phones. It just gets really complicated for our in-house staff to support that. So I know for sure physical. As far as the downloads, I may, but we'd have to put like a disclaimer or something on it that just lets people know that.
Yeah. Amelia asked, are there plans for more God's Designs for Life for beginners? We have God's Design for Life is...
There is one more that was written, and it is Answers in Genesis publishes it. We haven't gotten our license copy. It is the Universe. That will be the last in that series. Hopefully, spring of 2020, we'll have access. It should go pretty quick because that's easy to lay out, but we don't have it in-house yet.
Okay. Stephen and Melissa Caps asked, are there plans to create Bible curriculum for special needs kiddos? Curriculum or Bible curriculum?
It's a good question. And I don't think we have anything specifically designed for special needs. Right. We often, because we use the Charlotte Mason method, it lends itself well to that. But yeah, I would say no, but I would also say that everything we do is also keeps aware that it's very tailorable. So. Right.
Aaron said, what are some of the best tricks or advice for using your history, science, or Bible apologetics classes as family-style read-alouds? Would we just need the textbooks, or would teacher manuals still be beneficial? I love your course books, but we prefer to do these subjects family-style, so I would love some advice to make that work.
A couple of the things that we've done in the past as a family is we would have the older students teach the younger students, right? So you would be the reader, and then you would actually kind of be the teacher in the class. Right. Yeah, I think our student books could easily be read. I know the one that we have, biographies of the Revolution and timeline of the Revolution, a lot of families enjoy just reading that as kind of stories and then discussing it. So you could definitely do that. I think the teacher guide would give you some good questions for discussion, maybe some activities and things like that. But I think if you wanted to do just read alouds with our stuff, you could definitely do that. Almost all of our student books would make just fantastic reading material.
Yeah. Carolee Ash, she said, newbie here, need to order curriculum, first time homeschooling, 8th grader. I see there is a lot geared to younger kids. Anything electives in the works for older kids?
Well, we actually have a lot of electives for older kids. We have logic, we have world religions and cults, we have cultural issues, we have a biblical apologetics. So there are a fair amount of courses. We also have worldviews in conflict, the biblical classics. Yeah, we continue to do electives and bringing that in. So yeah, I think in the group, you tend to see a lot of people who are using the kindergartens, the first grade, second grade. A lot of that too is because we've been releasing, the last year we really focused a lot on the lower grades. Prior to that, we did a lot in the high school. Like we started with high school electives and high school credits when we started producing our teacher guides. So 2 years ago, most of what we had was for 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade. Now what you're seeing is just the push for the lower grades. As we're completing those, I think you're going to start to see more again developing. Like we have Algebra 2 coming out next year, which is going to be amazing. Oh my goodness, if you've seen any of the posts that I've put up that have Kate's, like the giraffe and how Algebra 2 applies to giraffe and the creator, just fantastic. And my son, I was going to say my oldest son, but it's not. He's a middle son, but he's my oldest son living in the house. He has the privilege of doing Algebra 2 right now as Kate writes it, and it's awesome. So courses like that are coming out. I know we're always looking at different options that we have for junior high and high school. So yeah, there's already some available, some great ones. World Religions and Cults and the Logic are just amazing.
Okay, so it looks like Kasha kind of answered part of this question, so I'm going to shorten it. Thoughts and updates on a Spanish curriculum or cursive remix? Cursive curriculum.
Yeah, Spanish curriculum, probably not for quite a while. Just because we still have so much other curriculum that we need to finish.
Mm-hmm.
Cursive curriculum is another one. Again, there will be a handwriting course. I know it's been discussed. It's not on the books. It probably is something that you're going to see in the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Aaron asks, any advice on how to know Simply K is right for a child?
Well, I think it's philosophy, educational philosophy, and Simply K is a development approach. It is teaching a child, it's building stamina, it's giving them some critical thinking skills and motor skills. It's designed to prepare a student to have a solid foundation. I have students who kind of fell, I won't say they fell between the cracks, but life was happening and maybe they didn't develop the motor skills, so their handwriting was sloppy. Or they didn't develop the stamina, and so they get burned out quick when they're working with things. So I think Simply K sets a really good foundation for learning. If your student has already, mastered a lot of those things, then you may not need to do it. I think we as a company and our educational philosophy was a lot of people rush students into the academic side of things, and they aren't prepared emotionally or physically to handle that. And so Simply K is really the developmental side of preparing the student for learning.
All right. Natalie asked, any chance for an art book geared toward kindergarten or first grade?
Well, we have the art coming out, which is more for the upper. There's possibilities for everything. I think as we launch a product line, we test it, we see, and then we look at the feedback. So if that's a need that's in the market, is something, because a lot of people at those ages will use very basic painting, coloring, Play-Doh for sculpting, those types of things. But if there's a need in the market for it, then absolutely that's something that would be something we could do.
Right. Jolene said, help, I'm struggling with science. My third grader started with God's design in heaven and earth, and it went over his head, but the beginners seemed too easy. What would you recommend?
It's a hard place, right? Because third grade is the bottom end of that. You could just try doing it as read aloud. Just read it and discuss it. And if there's a certain place where he gets more excited about it, then go a little deeper with that. Modify it to fit the student. We've got a lot of time in third grade to teach them these concepts. So they don't need to be professional astronomers in third grade. They're going to learn astronomy again, most likely. It's like chemistry or biology, life science, any of those things. One thing I will say, we tend to recommend the life science. It was the astronomy, right? We tend to recommend life science for third grade because some of the concepts aren't as abstract.
It's God's design,
heaven and earth. Yeah, life science would be the one that we normally would say, I'd start with this one just because the concepts are a little easier because students understand.
Would you do life science beginners or life science like the regular? Because she says
I would probably do the regular.
Too easy. Okay.
Yeah, but the heaven and earth gets into a little bit more complicated. You can do it, but if for a student who's struggling, I would probably go that direction. But also, if that's too much, just do the read alouds and discussion. You're still teaching, even if they're not filling out a worksheet, you're still getting that dialogue.
Right.
We do that all the time with what we do. I talk to Brittany, she listens, and then I ask her, are you listening to me? And she says, yeah, and then tells me everything back.
Rachel asked, my kids love Passport to the World. Any chance there will be a second?
Okay, so I know that on the project list going out for a ways, Craig, who wrote Passport to the World, was Passport, and I think he did the Atlas too, right? He's doing one for America. So there will be like an American Atlas, and he'll be expanding that.
That would be cool.
That will be cool. And we also have something else in the works that I'm not allowed to discuss, but in the future weeks, you're going to be really excited by that, and we should have some good solutions for geography and some of that.
Will we get to see a bootleg copy?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what it is either, so.
Coming soon. It's exciting. I have trouble sleeping at night. I'm so
You're
excited.
so excited. We're gonna have to talk after this. Kim asks, looking for advice on grading and writing strands, level 1 and language lessons for living education 5. I have to turn in weekly grades for sports eligibility with our umbrella school. Thanks.
I'm sorry for turning my back. Let's see. In writing strands beginning 1, I believe, there is a grading options for the course. And we've even talked, maybe I should put this on the group somewhere or something, but because this comes up, how do I grade? So the recommendations for grading would be, it would be an A, B, C, D, and F. An A would be student showed complete mastery of concepts and no errors. So they wrote a paper that was perfect. That's an A. B would they showed a mastery of the concepts but had minimal errors. So maybe there was some spelling, a comma was off, something like that. C, the student showed partial mastery of concepts. Review of some concepts is needed. So maybe they did a good job writing, but there's still a little bit that they need to, they need a little bit of help. So maybe you actually do some corrections and have them rewrite it. Right. But again, even if the review is part of that and then they rewrite it and it's good, that type of thing. So A to C right there. D, the student showed minimal understanding of concepts. Review is needed. So they looked at what we're talking about and it just was very poor. And F, student did not show understanding of concepts. Review is needed. They didn't put any effort into it. That would be an F. So essentially, as the teacher, you are grading based on, A is, hey, this is a perfect paper. I don't think I could do it better myself. B, it's not perfect, but it's near perfect. C, it's average. It's okay. D, needs some help here. We've got to review this. And F would just be, you don't understand anything. So that would be a very basic recommendation for grading. Number system, A for us would be kind of the, 100 to 90. B would be in the 80s. C would be in the 70s. A D would be like 69 to 65. F would be anything under 65. We've always, because we graduated from an ACE system, and with ACE, you always had to have an 80% or above. So we always strove to have, for the kids, that they would have more of a B up, average and up, or above an 80% before they went to the next levels. But that would be kind of a basic. And you're doing it, there's no perfect system in writing because you're having to think about it very objectively. But when you do it, and the teaching companion also goes into some more instruction about how to grade a paper, what to look for, those types of things with a student. So.
Right. Gabriella asked, any readers on the works to go along with language lessons for living education for independent reading?
Yes. We have somebody in-house who is beginning to work on developing readers for early learners.
Okay.
As far as time frame, probably you're going to see those start to drop in 2020, next year.
Cool. Tina asks, are there any websites or online videos to help instruct kids if the parents don't know the answers?
Well, online, we don't necessarily have any. There is the One Math that I've recommended in the past in the group that we've used. There are so many different tools and resources. And the thing about it, we don't allow outside links in the group because we don't have time to review everyone. And I would hate to review a YouTube channel that we haven't had time to look at. And then suddenly there's something controversial or that would hurt your students' faith. And so because we can't review it, we say, you can't look at it. But I know when you just go into, and maybe if a moderator is watching and they know the link of the math, you're welcome to post that. I think it's like Math Facts or one of those. We've used those in the past to complement math lessons for a living education. If our student was struggling with long division and it was something like I wasn't able to explain it or Kristen wasn't where they were getting it, they would watch those videos. Is it Math Antics? I don't know.
No, there's so many comments coming in.
So
no, they may have posted the link to it.
But anyways, that would be the one that I know we've reviewed. We've looked at it. We've looked at their corporate site, and there was nothing in it that was controversial at the time. But when you deal with outside companies, we take very seriously the scripture that says it would be better to tie a millstone around your neck and throw it off the dock than to lead a little one astray. And so because of that, we don't want to make recommendations. Sometimes people will ask us, well, can you make a reading list to go along, all these other products? And people will get offended sometimes when we delete a recommendation from this group. But the reason we do that is because we haven't reviewed it. And we try to make sure that everything we talk about in this group is something that Master Books is willing to stand behind. Because it's amazing how literature can impact the worldview. I think of just very simple books that I read as a child that shaped my worldview. And we don't want to put recommendations in there. We want you as the parent to do that. If you see a reader that we're recommending, it means it's gone through a lot. When we have When I See a Star, or the marriage book that was written by Amanda in this group, God's Perfect Plan. That book we've reviewed. We've had outside reviewers. Answers in Genesis reviewed it, their editorial review. So when we put it out here, we're comfortable that the theology that's supported has been reviewed by a team, and we'll stand behind that product.
Right.
I kind of went on a rant. But
oh, it was a good rant.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Tanya said, if your child starts Jensen's in 9th grade, should you still have them do some type of writing curriculum also? She said, I know it was suggested to hold off on the writing until upper high school.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, show some mercy on the kid, Format writing is intense. So if they're doing format writing or they're doing the grammar, Jensen's grammar, just focus on the grammar and then do the writing after that. So compositions are made up of sentences. So if they're doing sentences with Jensen's grammar, they're going to do good format writing. It may be in another one, so I'll address it now as long as we're here. Some people are asking, I'm doing writing strands and language lessons, and I wouldn't. I would go with one or the other. I mean, language lessons for a living education is a pretty thorough, it's got everything. You're learning to write paragraphs, and you're learning to put together, sentences, paragraphs, reports. You don't need to do both. I would pick one or the other and go that way. As an advocate of your student, have mercy.
I second that. Cindy asked, will you ever have an option where we could pay more to have faster shipping?
Okay, so it's logistics. When you have 5,000 orders and you're trying to get them all processed and keep inventory in stock and all of these things, we ship our orders FedEx Express, which is 2-day shipping, or USPS Priority. There are times we use media mail, but it's not the regular shipping method. So generally, we're shipping faster method. Now, some people want to pay less and have media mail and stuff like that. But here's the deal: it's all logistics. Not everything is as good. So if we say we're going to ship a certain way, and you don't get the tracking numbers, or something happens, or it isn't as effective as possible, then customer service gets overwhelmed with, where's my order? How come you shipped it this way? You please 5 people, you don't please 5 people. And ultimately we would love to have shipping options, but at a time like this, 5,000 orders come in, sorting through those orders to figure out who paid to have it shipped today versus who didn't would really just be too difficult for us. So our shipping department has made huge strides, and we've brought in extra staff, and we built a new warehouse last year. We're looking at implementing some more changes. So in the future, there's always that possibility. As it exists today, we're trying to reach the needs of everybody the best we can with the methods that are available. Man, there's like comments coming.
I know. There are so many in the live. I'm still going through ones that we posted from yesterday. So Amber asked, any advice for parents getting ready for the high school years? My oldest is in this. Oh, I don't know why I can't talk today. My oldest is only in 6th grade this year, but I'm already nervous for when she gets into her high school years. What do I need to do to prepare for the high school years when they're here?
hslda.org. I highly recommend going there. They have a section there, homeschooling through high school. Familiarize yourself with that, with the transcript, and I don't think you need to worry about it. You're not the first person to homeschool through high school. It is a little bit intimidating to begin with, but you do it one class, 1 year at a time. Homeschooling high schoolers is awesome. And check that website out. They have a brochure that you can order or download, and I think it's Homeschooling Through High School. And I would recommend just familiarizing yourself with them, because that's going to be one of the best guides you can get. They may even sell, like there are some transcript courses that you can get that talk about how to keep your students' transcript and all of that. And that will help you become more comfortable with things like Carnegie units and requirements for college versus trade and those types of things.
Kelly asked, what about an upper level consumer math or business math?
It's something we absolutely want to do. It's not on the project sheet yet, but definitely something that we're looking to have in the future. Algebra 2 is what's hot now, and then we'll look at solutions beyond that.
Right. And Trisha asked, Math 7 is in the works, ?
Math 7 exists. So Math 7 is our Principles of Mathematics. That Math Lessons for Living Education 6 transitions them from that into into the Principles of Mathematics, which prepares them for the Jacobs algebra. So with math, we feel that the Charlotte Mason approach, or the Charlotte Mason flavor for the elementary ages, is great, but you need to begin to prepare your student for more of the traditional approach. And so Principles of Math just does a phenomenal job of that. And it also ties in the creation aspect. So I would hate to create a product that took away from something that is exceptional. If you haven't looked at Principles of Mathematics, I think it's exceptional.
Is More Than Words 2 the same content as Level 1, just designed for older kids, or is it the continuation of Level 1? It's by Amelia.
Same as Level 1, just different ways it's presented for an older student.
John Harris, or no, this would be Jess Harris. She said, hi, I'm going to start my daughter in Math Level 2. She's 9 and wanted to review the concepts at a lower level with her. Would you suggest to go through each lesson with her, or let her try to do them independently if she needs help?
I think you could let her do it independently, as long as she can. If she has any problems, she comes and talks to you or works with you. I wouldn't, at 9, I wouldn't have any problem letting her work on those concepts.
So I've got 2 questions that kind of go, we'll hit them at one time. Aaron asked, any plans for a health curriculum for middle school / high school, something that would include addictions, mental health, etc. And then Tracy from yesterday's post asked, which of the junior high human body science courses covers reproduction, or would you suggest another separate course book for the talk?
Dr. Tommy Mitchell has the reproductive system that's coming out. I think it'll be out late this fall. So that is one for sure. What is the other? Life Before Birth is a board book that we have that some families have used for the talk. We don't have anything else that I would have for a recommendation in that area yet. We've talked about, the need for a gender course. In the beginning, God made them male and female, and the intended purposes and all of that. So there may be a course in light of the culture that we live in right now with so much gender confusion and but we don't have one now. So I would probably say the best resources we have, Life Before Birth, and then Dr. Mitchell's book, which writing a book on sexual reproduction is a challenge. So
A little bit.
Yeah.
Cool.
Where are the fig leaves? How? Yeah.
Everybody presents it differently.
It's been fun to listen to the editors talk about how are we going to do this.
Okay, moving on. Debbie asked, she said, question for Randy. Will you ever consider writing a parenting book? The Lord has given you such wisdom on parenting with grace, and I have been blessed by hearing it in your videos. Would love to have it all in one place.
Well, thank you. It's an honor that anybody would benefit at all from my ramblings. I really enjoy this format. I enjoy being able to present in a group of like-minded people. So as far as a book goes, I'd have to find a publisher, and publishers are the hardest to work with. I mean, they're just publicists, PR people, marketing people. They're just, too much of a pains in the back. So yeah, thank you. But I love being able to present this way and kind of understand what are the needs of the group and how can we help that. And then now we've made it available on YouTube so people can binge watch.
Yeah.
We get reports that people had watched like 30,000 minutes of this last month. It's just like, wow, that's crazy. So awesome. Thank you though.
And Tanya, I don't know if I said your name wrong, so if not, I'm sorry, but she
Antonia.
said
Antonia. Okay.
Cool. She said, thanks for stealing all the bootleg copies for us, Randy. Veronica said, as a wife who is homeschooling and wants to raise our kids in the Lord and grow our faith as a family and individuals, and we sure are, thank you, Master Books, what advice would you have to encourage the husband who isn't involved in the homeschooling process or interested in growing his own faith or leading the home spiritually?
Yeah, I think I've done I did some teaching tips on this, and maybe it's a good teaching tip to discuss. Number one would be patience. Number two would be to turn him over to the Lord. That, Lord, you know what it will take to make this man that you created and formed and have a purpose for to raise his family in the way that you have. I wouldn't try to force it because generally that just causes a guy to abandon or not, almost to rebel against it. And I wouldn't, and then sometimes, and please hear me on this, let a guy lead the way God designed him to lead, as opposed to leading like a mommy. And sometimes people, a mom will want the guy to lead, but she won't be comfortable with letting him lead the way he does. And so maybe he loves to fish and hunt, or maybe he loves, like one of the things Kristen's been really good at, I burned her out years ago and having to listen to music and go to my band practices and everything else. But one of the things she's done is give me a lot of room to bring instruments in, and we've gone to all kinds of concerts and done things like that. But Kristen doesn't participate in that. But she lets me invest in the kids on that level in the way that I would. Sometimes she'll give me the eyebrow, like, are you sure that's the best thing? Because sometimes I need that. But there are other times where she's just kind of let me lead the way I would naturally lead. And then very shortly, the other thing that I would say would be we're the average of the people we're around in the environment that we have. So don't be afraid to kind of growth hack your husband a little bit with the like Answers in Genesis and Ken Ham. When we first saw that DVD, that really built up me wanting to know more about apologetics and be able to defend my faith. I was around some other men who were manly, but led their families in a godly way. And it challenged me because I wasn't being that man. It's so important in my life. We are at a church currently where the pastor, he challenges me as a man. He's younger than me. He's probably 15 years younger than me, but he's very masculine, but he's also very godly in a way that continually challenged me as a man to say, I need to step up my game because I don't want to be lacking. So find healthy places spiritually for your family. And sometimes that's hard because sometimes we're so used to, I've been part of this church for so long and whatnot. And maybe it's not just that. Maybe it's just find good speakers or bring in DVDs or find opportunities to kind of rub shoulders with people that will raise the average that you are. Mm-hmm. So that's a very complicated topic. And maybe I can do a teaching tip on my suggestions for that. But right. I know what Kristen would say for sure is turn him over to the Lord. Nobody can grow a man. There's a poem. Only God knows how to grow a man and mold a man and shape a man. Even when he's breaking him down and destroying him, he knows what he's building up. And I completely botched that poem, but Ravi Zacharias does it, and it's a phenomenal poem. So that is the best thing you can do is say, okay, God, you know what this man needs to be to lead this home, and I'm turning him over to you, and I'm releasing him to you. Okay.
Kristen asks, with multiple kiddos, do they each need their own more than words book? I have a kindergartner who is just getting started writing. Should I get her own?
With most of our books, because they were meant to be consumable, I would say yes. With a kindergartner, you could certainly have them participate in some activities, because if they're not really learning to read, if they're learning to write and read, they may get as much out of it from just reading. I think that's more stylistically what you're more comfortable with.
Right. Lacey asks, what would be a good resource to incorporate for struggling spellers, second grader? How do you get them to just sound off and write, even if it's wrong? He refuses his too because he doesn't want to get it wrong.
Perfectionist, yeah. There are good spellers and there are poor spellers, and I think in this case, there is a spelling component to language lessons for a living education. I think it's adequate and has more than enough practice for words that they can learn to spell. Practice is how we do it. I am so thankful for spell check because as I type out my emails, usually there's 2 to 3 words that are wrong. Let me give you some hope. The president of our company is Tim Dudley, and he is a brilliant business person. I have high respect for him. He is probably one of the worst spellers I've ever met, and he runs a publishing company. Now, he doesn't do the editing and proofing and all of that, but how awesome that God would say, I'm going to give you, like Moses, he's like, you got to go and talk to my people and tell the Pharaoh to let him go, but I'm going to give you a speech impediment. So when it comes out, it's going to you're going to stutter, right? And then everybody knows I'm God. Well, so he says, hey, I'm going to have you take over a publishing company and run a publishing company, but I'm going to handicap you because you're not going to be that good of a speller. And Kristen laughs because I think Kristen's worked with Tim since 2012, and I don't think he spelled her name right once.
And it's different every single time.
Yeah, and she's always like, Kristen with an E, I'm a 10, not 10, and he still writes Kristen, and he's done it in every variety. But the Lord has used him and to create a publishing company, and he has gifts that are like, he's incredible when he sees a product at bringing it to life and the imagery and all of those things. So what I would encourage you with is address the spelling, keep working at the spelling, practice words that he's getting wrong, encourage the wins. Don't make a big deal. Like if you're frustrated and getting intense, chances are he's going to read that. Take it from the standpoint of, you know what, no big deal, buddy. We're going to get this. And you know what, if not, we've always got spell check. Thank goodness for technology, right? We don't have to write the Constitution anymore from memory. We have Word to do it and plenty of spell check. Some people would say that's terrible, what I just said. But yeah, I think sometimes we can get so intense that we put our anxiety onto our student. And so just relaxing a little bit and know you've still got a lot of years to work on this. And even if he always struggles with spelling, it doesn't mean he's going to have to dumpster dive for supper.
Right. And I would say, if I could touch on perfectionism a little bit, I'm a perfectionist. I know we've talked about this before, but the hard thing about it is that perfection corners us kind of into a place of like fear, and it emotionally constricts us and kind of brings about an anxiety. So I would say my suggestion to you is to be aware of his reactions to his own shortcomings and try to understand where he's coming from. Help him to kind of understand whether or not his harsh criticisms of himself are helping to grow him, or if they're just making him insecure and doubt himself even more. And then when you kind of understand his emotions, you can help him to kind of understand, why are you feeling this way? What kind of play out some of the things that he's worried about if he gets it wrong. Like if you get it wrong, what do you think is going to happen? And then to kind of work through those emotions with him. And then once you can kind of teach him to kind of step back and understand why he feels certain ways about certain things, you can definitely approach things from a much healthier way. Approach problems from a much healthier way, because you can take a step back and just think about why you're feeling a certain way to go forward and approach it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Fear of failure puts us in a bad brain spot. And so once we're in bad brain, it's hard to be creative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Samantha said, I have a 9th grader, language lessons for Living Education 5 and writing strands. The writing strands is not going so well. My plan was to have him complete language lessons 5 and 6 and writing strands beginner 1 and 2 this school year.
I would say drop writing strands, focus on language lessons for living education, do language lessons for living education 5, then 6, then do the placement test for writing strands, see where he places. Hopefully it'd be about intermediate,
right, and
have him then move into writing strands at that level. I wouldn't have him do both. It's going to be a little bit different academic philosophies in teaching. So I would say drop writing strands if it isn't working. Language lessons for living education, he can accelerate through it, right? So you could finish 5 and 6 this year. Do that rather than trying to cram 2 things into one place.
Okay.
And if your concern is my student needs to write more, here's something I've done on the side. My son needed to learn to write. So what I would have him do is I'd have him read a chapter in a book, any book. He would pick a biography. He'd pick any book, read a chapter. I want you to write me 1 paragraph. Tell me what that book's about. I don't have time to do it. Write me a summary. And then he would write me the summary. And then I would give him some suggestions for improving that. Then I'd say, okay, go read another chapter. You've got free time. Read the chapter. Write me a paragraph. That's all I want is one paragraph saying this chapter was about this and maybe what you learned or a takeaway. That just got him used to writing and comfortable. So if you feel the need to have him do more pen to paper work, I would suggest something simple like that. But don't combine too many courses. You only need 1 course. You don't really need to be overwhelming him with too much.
Alyssa said, my daughter's in 5th grade and is doing soil, sea, and sky and is doing the whole week in 1 day. She's always loved science. Should I let her go at her pace as she's doing the recommended time for it and then grab another science when she completes this one?
I would let her go. Yeah, if she's loving it and she's eating it up, let her go. Maybe do some additional research if she wanted to add something or you wanted to go do some field trips around it. If you wanted to go do a dig or go visit something in a museum and different things like that, add to it. But if you've got a student who's consuming a product like a subject, go for it. Just like let them run with it, because eventually, it slows down. You don't have to worry about it. But man, this is what we want. We want them to get excited about learning. So the moment they do and they take off, feed that fire with everything you can. And right?
Yeah, they take off and you don't want to grab the chain and then jerk them back.
Yeah,
then they're not gonna want to keep running.
Yeah. So it's kind of that concept of, you took off and you're running. Now we want, we'll load you up so you can't run as fast. I wouldn't do that. I would just feed it as much as you can. That's the beauty of homeschooling. We can once we know what direction our students are interested in, and this is something I know Brittany and I have talked a lot about this week. I love once my kid shows an interest in playing drums or mechanics and fixing things, then I fed it as much as I could. I'd buy, equipment, and we would study and instructional courses. We'd go to music stores. We'd do whatever it took to just kind of feed that. Sometimes it fizzled out. No big deal. We had the experience. Brittany had the opportunity of going to Nashville this last weekend and meeting up with some friends. And one of the friends that she was hanging out with was able to converse with people, right? And he has a lot of knowledge, and he was, but he could sit and talk to anybody. Like, he just could converse with people.
Yeah.
She don't know where I'm going. Some of these things that we feed a fire, and maybe it takes off, maybe it fizzles, and I'm on a rant right now. It gives us the opportunity to have connection points with people down the road. There is no wasted learning.
Right. He was a wealth of fun facts, but he knew enough about all this different stuff that he was able to just talk to literally anybody he passed by, even if it was just like at a surfacey level, which is cool.
Yeah. So when your student shows some interest in something, feed that fire, and it may take off. It may become something that they do for the rest of their lives, or it may just be something that they gain some knowledge and then move on. But it will give them some experience to be able to connect with people later. So kind of the Renaissance man approach.
And one more question. Hallie asks, my kindergarten is on foundation phonics. It was going great, but putting sounds together to words is not clicking. Would taking a book break for CVC words work help? Any suggestions?
All right, so I'm going to give you my opinion on this. I think kindergarten is risky for teaching reading because there are certain developmental skills, intellectual skills that have to take place first. So some students, especially when we're talking about phonetics reading, haven't developed the memory to be able to put together sounds. So the way you can test this is give them a sequence of numbers. If I say 5, 2, 1, 4, can you repeat back what I just said? 5, 2, 1, 4, because your brain can remember four sequences. Phonics is that way. When I'm learning phonics, I'm sounding off all these different letters, and then I need to put it together in a word. So sometimes students in kindergarten, when we push them too heavy and they haven't developed that ability, they get frustrated. And so the good thing to do is to allow them to develop, like play some games like matching games where they, where you have the cards and you flip one over and, oh, that's a donkey, there's a rabbit, donkey, here's a donkey, 2 matching cards type thing. That helps develop some of those skills. Some number games, like I just said, where we start out with 2 digits. I'm going to give you 2 digits, and then you repeat them back to me, and let's build that up. A phone number is like the 7 digits. That's like an adult type. They should be able to remember 7. Most students need. If Carrie Bailey is watching, I'm sure she knows and could comment on this. But they need to know, I think, well, at least 3 for most words, be able to remember those sounds to put the words together. Right. So my recommendation would be don't push too hard. Focus on letter sounds, focus on developing some of those memory skills, intellectual skills, and then come back to it and kind of see how we're doing there. And then basic language skills begins to take it a little bit further. So foundation phonics gives a beginning, and then basic language skills, which will be language lessons for a living education, would be kind of the second half of that course, developing that a little bit further. So just when I hear somebody say my kindergartner is struggling with foundation phonics, for me, it's always kind of a warning bell of maybe they're not ready for phonics, and you could discourage them by pushing them too much. Right.